drop out. So there is that sort of standoff, if you will. I'm not 100% sure if that's where Laura was or if this is the other side of the protest. Where people are just milling about, they're just standing there. The good news is we're not seeing the lawlessness that we saw last night with people doing things like throwing rocks. Now, throwing fireworks, illegal fireworks, that's not great, but yesterday was just so incredible with the lawlessness and the recklessness, seeing things like a reckless driver, seeing things like people that I just don't think that they were there to protest ICE, but they were on an overpass looking down at CHP vehicles and then tossing chunks of cinder block or concrete down onto the freeway. So that's not what we're seeing tonight, thank goodness. But what we are seeing is a big collection of people who feel the need to be out here to express themselves against the immigration aids, against the policies of the Trump administration. And the president and the rest of his administration, they are towing the line. They are saying that what is happening in Los Angeles is not allowed, and that's why the president says it is time to bring in extra people and extra military, including Marines from 29 Palms. All right, now what's the live situation in Santa Ana? We had been checking that out previously. Things have changed in that it seems as if they've now reopened traffic in the basic vicinity where we are before. Clearly, police are still there as a presence, but because we're seeing those passenger cars, it suggests that there are aspects or parts of that Civic Center area where they are allowing cars. But that skirmish line is going to mean business. It's going to send a message to anyone that perhaps wants to congregate somewhere where the police do not want them. Pointing out that City of Santa Ana had acknowledged that they were aware of ICE raids in the vicinity of the city today, and made a point to say that law enforcement was not there, was not in Santa Ana to aid in any way the ICE agents, that the feds and the local law enforcement, they are not working together. That could be a way to turn down the temperature with those that are demonstrating against ICE, but on the other hand, anytime you have a big group of people and you need a skirmish line like that, you need the police presence, that is oftentimes what needs to be done in order to be sure to keep the peace. And again, a lot of these people have seen what happened last night in Los Angeles. I'm sure they want to make sure that that doesn't happen here. Meantime, we're watching as that line is moving forward, so those police officers got some kind of an order to move forward. This is a type of crowd control strategy. The police officers will move the skirmish line, they'll keep moving, and by doing so, it forces the crowd, especially if a order to disperse has been given, it forces the crowd to move. They have to move away from the skirmish line. Yeah, they can stand by and try to interact or try to stand their ground, but mostly in order to avoid arrest, they need to move with the skirmish line. So as the skirmish line continues to move forward, that is going to also affect the protesters or affect the people that were in this area in the city of Santa Ana for the sake of demonstration. And now we see these are most likely in the green, they're most likely Orange County sheriffs. So we're watching Orange County sheriff's deputies in their own skirmish line going a different route. And now our photographer is following right behind. I don't even see very many people in front of the skirmish line, but I did mention the passenger cars, and they are now heading towards an area where there are a number of passenger cars that have parked on the street, which likely means that there is a group of people which we can't see very well beyond those cars. So we'll just keep an eye. Oh, now they're stopped. So now the sheriff's deputies are stopped. Actually, what's immediately in front of them looks like a media car, to be honest. So they're stopping. Are they making any kind of announcement? I do hear some kind of at least talk. I don't know if it's specifically a public announcement. We also saw some more graffiti I mean, honestly, it's nothing compared to what downtown Los Angeles looks like. And there you go, the sheriff's deputies on the move again, slowly but surely walking this street and thereby pushing peacefully the people away from that area. So now a number of them are going onto the sidewalk, which may or may not allow them to stay put. Once law enforcement says you need to leave the area, this is an unlawful assembly, once that order goes out, then the public needs to keep moving at the very least. If they don't, and they stop, and they interact with those law enforcement officers, then what can happen is that they can be arrested. And we did see arrests. We have seen arrests. I thought it was particularly interesting that on Saturday, most of the arrests were failure to disperse. By Sunday, the arrests were for much more serious offenses, things like interacting or assault on a peace officer. You can hear some people, they are yelling in their passion about their cause, about demonstrating against ICE and the ICE raids. There's a sign there that says "Immigrants Built America." Fingers crossed there aren't other signs with a lot of obscenities. We've interacted with, seen a lot of those, to be clear. Okay, so here we go, sheriff's deputies standing there in front of the people that have gathered in the basic civic center downtown area of Santa Ana. Seems to be peaceful, although every once in a while we hear something that is most likely an illegal firework. The sheriff's deputies, interestingly, they do have their riot helmets on. They have their hard helmets on, but they don't have the riot shields that we've been seeing with the National Guard, with the LAPD. And so in this case, they are standing nearly toe-to-toe with the demonstrators in Santa Ana. And again, Santa Ana has been witness to some ICE raids. So there is a reason why these people are riled up. They are riled up because they are against those actions by ICE. They are against the actions of the Trump administration and how the Trump administration has handled this roundup of what they call illegal criminals, because they are deemed criminals because they are in this country illegally. But again, we're seeing a lot of what most people would call peaceful protest. Yes, there's a gentleman there that is quite riled up and screaming, but he is not being destructive. He is not damaging anything. And to the best of our knowledge, he is also not aiming any of his ire towards these peace officers. We continue to watch this situation as well as other situations around Southern California, including the fact that there are still people in the downtown Los Angeles area, but again, a far different situation than what we experienced yesterday, which seemed like anarchy, which seemed like people that were not there for a purpose, just there to cause chaos. We are going to take a little bit of a break here, but we're keeping an eye on these two scenes in Southern California, all aimed at ICE.
Live across SoCal, this is LA Live News Tonight on Fox 11 Plus.
All right, thank you for staying with us here on LA Live News Tonight. You're looking at a live picture from Skyfox. As you see there, a number of LAPD or sheriffs or law enforcement patrol cars separating two different groups of protesters, of demonstrators. So in front of those cars is a rather large group of people in the San Pedro and 2nd Street area. It's near Weller Court. If you've ever been to Little Tokyo, then perhaps you're aware of the Weller Court area. There's a lot of little restaurants. There's an anime comic book store. And right now we're watching as two police officers, it looks as if they were gearing up. They were putting on their helmets and their shields. Not sure if that means that they're thinking about something a little bit more serious than just a skirmish line. You do see some illegal fireworks that are being set off on a fairly regular basis. There goes another one. And it's perhaps because of that that we're watching as those police officers are getting ready for something, or they're getting prepared. So they've got those helmets on, they got the shields on. There are lots of police officers standing by, but yeah, perhaps these are newer police officers that are arriving on scene, getting ready to interact, or at the very least do what they can to control this crowd. That's a pretty good sized crowd, frankly. That's different from the crowd that we watched from Laura Diaz's point of view, where she mentioned there were about 50 people that decided to sit down, almost like a sit-in of the 60s, in order to demonstrate their distaste, their protestations to what's going on. In this case, back then it was the Vietnam War, and now it is President Trump and his anti-immigrant policies and the raids that have been conducted. I'm sorry, say again? Okay, now we're going to go back to Santa Ana and look at the situation down there. Gina Silva, are you down there? I didn't realize that you were heading towards the Orange County area.
Yes, we left Whittier and now we're here in Santa Ana at 4th and Broadway. And you can see here the crowd is walking away from where the officers for the deputies are. As you know, this is a protest that initially started around 5 p.m. and there were about 200 people, immediately grew. Protesters rallied against recent immigration actions by ICE. The demonstration, as I said, began peacefully with families and local activists waving signs and flags. But then it got out of control when demonstrators attempted to block a federal van from leaving the building. That's when the federal agents deployed smoke canisters and fired pepper balls to disperse the crowd. At this point, it's been deemed, everyone's been ordered to leave.
Are you smelling pepper balls, Gina?
Some sort of
Is this the news station?
Is it tear gas?
Yes. It's getting really difficult to be able to communicate because it's burning.
Hey, keep moving.
I'm going to have to send it back to you.
Okay. All right. So that's Gina Silva in Santa Ana. So clearly there has been a situation where she sort of suggested it was federal agents, so the National Guards perhaps, who wanted to get the demonstrators away from a vehicle, away from an ICE vehicle, which then meant there was tear gas or pepper balls or something that forced the crowd to move away from the vehicle itself, and also affected her ability to talk and to see. We did see a lot of people in her live shot, in her purview, that showed people with masks over their nose. It could be because they're trying to protect their anonymity, or it could also be because they wanted to filter out as much of the tear gas or the smoke as possible. So you see there that we've had sort of a limited view of what's been going on in Santa Monica. We did see a couple of arrests earlier in the hour, but right now it does appear that this is the situation. We'll get back to Gina when we can. But now we have another live shot to show you another live situation with Laura Diaz. So she was on the other side of 2nd Street versus where we looked at that larger crowd near Weller Court. Laura, you're closer to Alameda, so 2nd and Alameda, correct?
Yeah, we're basically second and San Pedro. And when I talked to you last about a half an hour ago, it was very peaceful. People were sitting down. They were trying to stage a sit-in. About 30 minutes later, of course, the emotion has ratcheted up. Somebody actually was able to discharge a chemical fire extinguisher, and that seemed to really ratchet up the emotion here. We were all coughing, tough to breathe, and then the people who were sitting down stood up. People started running, and since then there's been a lot more screaming and people upset about what's occurring here. So that's how much 30 minutes can make a difference, Susan. We've watched it throughout the last 4 days, that the emotion ebbs and flows and people's reaction ebbs and flows. The sheriffs and the PD that are behind us, the police from various agencies, have had fireworks thrown at them. So it was really noisy here just a little while ago, and then the crowd began pushing back. They are no longer sitting there. They are standing. And I think I wasn't able to actually hear them say it's time to disperse, but I suspect that's what they're telling the crowd. It's time to go home. But right now, people are standing up. They're waving flags. A different vibe than when I spoke to you 30 minutes ago. So I think we're all waiting to see what the next move will be.
Right.
Laura Diaz reporting live from Little Tokyo, sending it back to you, Susan.
Okay, so Laura, I was thinking that you were on the other side of a protest line, as if there were two skirmish lines, but I believe now, because we had the live shot from Skyfox, I believe now it is just that one skirmish line, and the people sort of milling about in this intersection nearby Weller Court. Weller Court is that big white building, multiple stories. So I think it's behind you.
People are running. People are running.
Oh, people are running. So be careful.
People are running, Susan. There's something going on. All of a sudden, people are running. It looks as though the skirmish line is moving forward. And, you know, when those fireworks are let go, they're very dangerous.
Indeed.
So it's trying to control the crowd and to do it in a safe manner. The police have hung back. I think they're telling people it's time to go home. Certainly time to move off of this corridor.
From Skyfox,
So
we have
we are off to
the aerial view. We have an aerial view of what's happening now, and it does show that the police are on the move now, which that means that skirmish line is going to, for the sake of crowd control, going to start pushing people. But then, was that more? Yes. And
Someone
those are
just
fireworks
let
that
a
are way
huge
too
firework off right in the middle of law enforcement. Now the police are moving us back too. We are part of the crowd. We're on the move. You can see that it's definitely gone a different direction. It's completely turned around from when I spoke to you 40 minutes ago. The anxiety level is high.
Laura, remember when we were talking about
right in front
the stance?
of law enforcement?
Right, the posture of the sheriff's deputies that you saw, they just seemed a little bit more relaxed. And now these guys, they've got the heavy sort of protective vests on. And
there are fireworks going off everywhere.
Those aren't fireworks. Those are less lethal munitions.
Oh, so some of these, okay, some of these are munitions. I did see fireworks earlier, but
I did too.
Okay. I think it's a mix, to be really frank with you.
I think you're right. I think you're right. So from Skyfox, you can see that they have released some of those smoke canisters and a couple of flashbangs. But at the same time, right before this police action, we had seen multiple fireworks being set off and mightily close, too close to the police officers themselves. So on the one hand, we were complimenting this group for protesting peacefully, and now it seems everything has gone sideways.
And that's what I've been trying to say in my live reports. 1 minute it can be fine. You check back 45 minutes later and everything's changed, and it's just the way it is. So you have to take it on a minute-by-minute basis. Right now, people are being pushed back. They are closer to that intersection now, and there is more space between the protesters and the line of law enforcement. There's a lot of smoke in the air.
What are those?
And security thinks it's time for us to go.
Okay.
Security doesn't want us this close to the action.
Yeah, it's like you're being squished in between.
There's
the
a
skirmish
sting in
line
the eyes and
protesters.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
it's getting ugly out here.
Oh, that's
It's getting
awful.
ugly.
Fireworks going one way, munitions going the other way. All right, Laura, please get out of the way, get to safety. This is just getting way too nerve-wracking. All right, we will cover this from Skyfox instead. That is a safe distance. Wow, that is no joke when you throw those fireworks that way. There's one very close.
Okay.
That ground crew's got to move. Your photographer's got to move. We're getting nervous for you guys. All right, thank you. All right, there you go. We've got Skyfox now. Thank you, Elliot and Laura. Yeah, we can see as the smoke canisters are being bandied about, and for whatever reason, a couple people have enough ignorance or stupidity or what have you to actually try to pick up the smoke canister and lob it back towards law enforcement. Now, law enforcement, typically, they have the gas masks on, or they have an ability to breathe through all of that smoke. But again, we're seeing more and more of these illegal fireworks. And they're very close. It's sort of interesting because they're very close to some of the demonstrators as well. But yeah, oh, and the leaf blowers. The reason why that guy is holding a leaf blower is because when there is tear gas or smoke in the air, that leaf blower allows him to direct the airstream, if you will, to keep the smoke and the tear gas away. But see, that person was able to pick up the canister and throw it back to police. At one point yesterday, we saw, you know, almost like a soccer game between police and demonstrators kicking back and forth a smoke canister. But I didn't know that you had the ability, or that you could fairly easily pick one up and then lob it back as opposed to kicking it. Okay. In the lower right-hand corner of your screen, that is still the same area, basically 2nd and San Pedro, Little Tokyo, not far from Weller Court. If you've ever been in the area, excuse me, for ramen or what have you. And it is very difficult to see the graffiti that is on the walls and to see, you know, an area that's very dear to me be wrapped up in this much chaos. But again, you see the police officers there, a couple of skirmish lines. They're going to keep the crowd moving. Not quite sure what that person was doing. They picked something up and getting out of the way, running out of the way. And meantime, we're seeing yet another firework, but it was actually lobbed, it seemed to be lobbed towards the demonstrators. Look how close that is. That's just awful. Unless there's another skirmish line that we can't see, then so we don't know if that was something that law enforcement did in order to push the crowd back. It's possible it was. It's possible that it was some kind of munition or some kind of strategy to get the crowd to move, and so then they lobbed it towards the people in the Little Tokyo area, but it was very nerve-wracking. It seemed very close, and perhaps there's something that I don't 100% understand about flashbangs, because that. So, okay. Oh, very fortunate to have former LAPD officer Dennis Zine, also former city politician, county politician. And Dennis, when you look at what the police are doing here in order to disperse the crowd, is that their primary function?
Well, they want to disperse the group. The group obviously isn't leaving the area. They need to maintain security in that area. You've got commercial businesses in that area, even though we've had problems with those issues in the past. So what they're trying to do is disperse the crowds that are gathering, and the crowds are obviously resisting. And I want to emphasize that the departments that have now been mobilized, they'll be working 12-hour shifts. Everyone will be in uniform, detectives included, and they're going to continue this until they can bring this to an end. With the assistance of the National Guard and the Marines, that'll offer assistance. But you've got LAPD, in addition to the sheriffs and other allied agencies that have been called into this very unusual situation that is not going to end real quick.
Yeah, I'm going to take issue with what you said in regards to the Marines and the National Guard, because to our understanding at this point, according to the mayor and the chief of police, the National Guard and the Marines are there to guard and protect the federal agents and the federal buildings. They're not to police the streets. So that's not going to add to the efforts by LAPD and the other agencies that have come to the aid of LAPD. They're not going they're not interacting with police.
Well, they want to keep them separate so they can maintain control of the federal facilities that are being impacted. The problem what we see happening, this is going day and night. These officers that they pulled from all types of resources within the police department, the sheriff's department, and the other agencies, they're not going to go continuously. They're going to finally collapse if we can't get some relief in for them. So when you're working 12 hours, and I've been on these skirmish lines before, when you work these 12-hour shifts, then you're off for 12 and you're coming back for 12. You can only endure that for a certain period of time until you can bring in some resources. Maybe the National Guard will come in and assist. I know there's a distinction between the federal authorities, but the problem is your personnel that are on the ground, these are all police officers that normally work radio cars or detectives. They're not used to this type of situation for a prolonged period of time. Short term, they can do it. But if this is going to continue for a long period of time, we're going to encounter some major problems with them.
Yeah, indeed. Well, the police chief had already warned residents of Los Angeles that unless it is a life-threatening situation, that they should expect to wait for any kind of response from the police agency, because they're on this tactical alert, because basically things like voluntary days off have been canceled, because they're on this overtime. Now, you know, part of the reason why the city of Los Angeles is in a budget crisis is because of a lot of the lawsuits that they've had to settle for police misconduct, or what was characterized as police misconduct. Doesn't this put us in a situation where officers get fatigued, Dennis, and then mistakes are made?
You can only continue this level for a certain amount of time. I mean, these officers are human beings. Many of them drive great distances to get to work. They live outside the city for a variety of reasons. So there's a fatigue factor. But if you're working 12 hours on a skirmish line, they're not driving around in radio cars, they're not getting a chance to stop and get coffee. When you're doing this for a prolonged period of time with the tear gas and the connection that they're having with these protesters, you burn them out pretty quick. Like the K-9 comes in, the cavalry, the mounted unit comes in, you can only work those for a certain amount of time. So now we're officially mobilized. Everybody's on 12-hour shifts, 6 a.m., 6 p.m., 6 p.m., 6 a.m., including detectives. So you'll see a lot of uniformed forces out there. But all those cases that have been handled are going to be pushed aside. So this is a priority. If this ends quickly, or if this continues for a long period of time, you're going to have some very serious problems. Officers get hurt, they're going to be taken off. So you're talking about human beings that are forced into the situation that they have to do what they have to do to maintain order, and hopefully this can get resolved in a few days. If this goes on a long period of time, as we've seen before, the National Guard comes in and assists. I know what the agreement's been. We're not enforcing immigration laws, but these police officers are human beings. They can only work so many hours until they collapse.
And you know, Dennis, you said something really interesting. When you have the mounted police, when you have the canines, and they're incorporated in this, there are strong rules in regards to how long and how often those animals can be worked. Is that not right? If you talk about...
Correct. These aren't machines. These aren't jeeps or tanks or armored equipment. These are human beings.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got families that I'm sure are worried. They got children who are worried. They see dad and mom out there on the skirmish line, and they see the protesters that aren't complying. If people would go home, we could resolve this real quick, but it doesn't appear that it's going to be resolved real quick. So these officers are under a great deal of stress, and I feel for what they're going through, and their families are suffering the consequences.
Indeed. And we're watching, Dennis, on this corner here, where we can see that police officers have their guns drawn, or they have the ability to shoot off those what would it be, a flashbang or something, towards the protesters?
Non-lethal. They have non-lethal weapons that they're utilizing, non-lethal.
Right, so they're shooting off those munitions, they're shooting off the non-lethal in order to push the crowd back further, correct? Farther,
right.
rather.
Correct. Correct. It's push and shove, back and forth, back and forth. But again, these officers have been out there. They'll be out there 12 hours. These officers will be there until 6 o'clock in the morning. Then a new shift comes in at that time. So they're going to continue with this, and it's a drain on the resources. It's a drain on human beings. And I've done this before. I know what it feels like after a couple of days working these long shifts and battling the tear gas and all the other hazards you have to encounter. So in the past, if the National Guard assists, if they break away from the other activities, but you police officers, again, they're human beings, and they need to rest. They don't have any rest what they're seeing right now.
We hear you on that sentiment, Dennis. I just want to change locations, and if you're able to see, we're going to go into the Santa Ana area. That's where Gina Silva is, and there the situation has changed as well. When we first tuned into this area, it seemed as if they were just merely pushing the crowd back with the skirmish line, but apparently now they are setting off some kind of less than lethal crowd control type device, whether it be tear gas or the munitions, the less than lethal rubber bullets. But Gina was affected by inhaling whatever that substance was in the air. What are the various choices that law enforcement agency have when they talk about setting off some kind of crowd control device or munition?
Well, they have those devices, non-lethal devices. They have those. They practice with those. It's obviously not used very often, but a situation like we see now, they need those. Officers wearing gas masks. If they have a gas mask that's not working properly, it'll affect that officer's breathing, etc. So this is very unusual. There's many officers on the departments that have never encountered this type of situation. They've been through training, and once you leave the academy, that's it for that. So a lot of these officers are experiencing things for the first time, and it's a frightening situation.
Right, but again, I was just trying to speak to the kinds of choices they have when they're doing this kind of crowd control. What are the various choices that a law enforcement agency would pick from and decide what to use in this kind of situation in Santa Ana?
There's command in charge. They will make the decision what type they will use. They'll decide, do we need this? Can we use a skirmish line? Can we push them back? Or do we need to resort to some kind of chemical, non-lethal, that we can utilize?
Right.
And they've got the weapons that they can use non-lethal. Everything has to be non-lethal.
Sure.
And so far, these have worked to some success, but the fact is the officers are breathing what everyone else is breathing, and that's part of the combat they have to go through.
Right. And Dennis, speaking of breathing something, Gina Silva, you were on the ground and we were chatting with you and talking with you when you were overcome by some kind of chemical substance. Do you know what you were influenced by, what you got into your eyes and in your mouth, presumably, lungs?
It had to have been pepper spray. We were nowhere near where the deputies were. We were pretty far away, and it had to have been already in the air because it just came over us. It was sudden, and it was so powerful. I couldn't breathe, and my eyes started burning. So that's when I said, I can't even talk anymore. I had to send it back to you. Everybody is now walking in this direction because obviously, you know, either tear gas or pepper balls are being dispersed. And again, we're going to be faced with that horrific feeling that happens when they do that. Again, this is a protest that started early in the afternoon, around 5 o'clock. It was peaceful. It started with 200 protesters rallying against ICE raids that occurred today. There were several videos. I spoke with a couple of people who said that they saw these videos on social media of a takedown that was, in their words, extremely rough and made them upset, and so they decided to come out and protest. And as I said, it started peacefully. Unfortunately, it did not end that way, as you can see, and that's because the protesters escalated everything when they tried to block a federal van from leaving the building. In response, the federal agents deployed those smoke canisters, fired pepper balls to disperse the crowd. The crowd got angrier, and this is where we are right now. Deputies have told everybody it's been an order to leave Everyone is still just sort of hanging around. They keep moving a little bit more away from the buildings. But as you can see, no one is leaving yet. Everyone is still here. And these demonstrators are sort of just, you know, I'm sure the ones that are closer to the officers, I've seen it firsthand. They taunt law enforcement, and that is never helpful. I don't know if I've lost you guys.
So we're seeing fireworks as well near you, Gina. It seems awfully close to you and the rest of these people. Are the fireworks aimed at police, or are they just setting them off in the crowd?
They're just setting them off into the sky. Yeah. Hello.
So how close are you to the skirmish
This is a
line?
much younger crowd.
A much younger crowd than what you saw earlier?
Were you guys hit by the sky?
Yeah.
All right, so Gina,
It's really, you know, Susan, it's really chaotic out here. It's difficult to hear you. These fireworks, you know, are going up. And so...
yes, understood.
And, you know, as you can see, some of the crowds are
No, you will listen to difficult to hear when you've got a lot of people, a lot of horns honking, maybe some sirens, maybe some fireworks. But if you're just joining us, and we're getting towards the end of LA Live News at tonight at 9, and we'll be switching over to Fox 11 News on Channel 11. But this is the situation in Santa Ana, where initially when we dipped in, when we saw what was going on there, it seemed to be a fairly docile crowd. But then it started to get heavier and more heated as the night has gone on. So we are keeping an eye on this situation. We did see a couple of arrests when we first arrived in Santa Ana. And as Gina points out, this is in part because there have been ICE raids in the Santa Ana area, and word of that was enough to inflame people and bring them out to protest. And you see there Orange County Sheriff's deputies, they're getting ready to form yet another skirmish line, I believe. And we're watching, so now multiple skirmish lines for crowd control, to get this crowd under control. But again, there's fireworks, and there is the ability by those deputies to perhaps choose to use some kind of less than lethal, non-lethal weaponry or munitions in order to push the crowd along. So it's really interesting how the crowd is almost like an ocean wave, how difficult it is. At one point it's low and then it's high. That's it for us on LA Live News tonight. Thank you for joining us. Coming up.
She hasn't told her father yet?
No, we're supposed to tell him tonight.
Where? What do you mean, where?
Susan wants me to be there.
You meeting the father for the first time?
Yeah.
Well, you'll make quite an impression on him when you tell him how you burned his cabin down.
I didn't burn it down. Kramer did.
I mean, the whole thing is ironic. Think of it. Here the guy is nice enough to give you a box of very fine Cuban cigars.
Yeah, I know what happened.
No, but wait, and then you dump them off onto Kramer.
I know.
Who proceeds to burn the man's cabin down with one of those very same cigars. It's very comical.
Listen, maybe we shouldn't start writing today. I got a lot on my mind.
Now, this is the Fox 11 News at 10.
We need to stop the raids. This should not be happening in our city. It is not warranted, and the only thing it does is contribute to chaos. This was chaos that was started in Washington, D.C.
County, but also in Orange County. There is outrage tonight over ICE raids continuing across Southern California, L.A., Whittier to Orange County. People upset, people protesting tonight. The Trump administration is mobilizing the military against the wishes of city and state leadership. Good evening. Welcome to Fox 7 News at 10. I'm Alex Michelson.
And I'm Christine Devine. We thank you for joining us. President Trump is not backing down. Today he announced he's deploying another 2,000 members of the National Guard and hundreds of Marines to control the anti-ICE demonstrations.
We've got live team coverage at Lascos. Laura Diaz in downtown. Gina Silva is in Santa Ana. Let's start, though, with Ed covering the military members heading our way.
Yeah, that's part of it, but a dramatic scene unfolding here right downtown L.A. Let's get you into it, Joe. Give you a look. LAPD headquarters, their main headquarters, 1st and Main. They have brought in convoys of LAPD black and white units coming in, lights and sirens, pulling off on Main, and now the officers rushing in there. Their tactical line, they're forming a skirmish line to protect their very headquarters. So one of the concerns was that this would be targeted because off to the left is the Little Tokyo area, and that is this grid here, 1st and 2nd, and then you have Maine and Los Angeles on the other end. That's the grid where they've had the protesters, and they're trying to seal them in that area, get them to move through. And the concern is, as they do that, a lot of those protesters may make a run here on police headquarters, and that's why you have the line of the skirmish line being set up here, the tactical lines being set up. That's part of those convoys I've been talking about. You see them moving through downtown LA, this very area here, in the last 15 minutes or so. Officers redeploying, getting ready. You're looking down Main. That's part of the grid down there at 2nd, where they're trying to seal off that crowd of protesters in the Little Tokyo area. Earlier in the last 15-20 minutes, lots of loud bangs echoing through the buildings here. As we go up top Skyfox, you get a look at that hotbed of activity down there in the Little Tokyo area. Talking about the bangs, there's police no doubt using LAPD down in that area, their non-lethal munitions like the flashbangs to get the crowd moving, to try to get them to disperse right through there. We haven't seen, though, which is a good part of all of this, if you will, that outright violence that we saw certainly play out on the streets here the last night, especially over here by City Hall, LAPD headquarters. Haven't seen that, and that is the concern, where they're trying to tamp this down at this point. But look at that crowd through there. The protesters still strong. Within the last hour, 45 minutes, they had a sort of a sit down in that area in Little Tokyo where they sat on the street, refused to move. LAPD tried with their skirmish line, tried to get them to keep moving, and now they're trying to seal off this grid to try to make some arrests and try to stop playing with really amounts to a cat and mouse game, as these protesters have learned. If they keep on the move and they have LAPD and the Sheriff's Department, everybody chasing them around through the grid here downtown, they're very hard to corral, very hard to take into custody. So LAPD using their convoys of black and whites, their rush of officers to move in and try to seal off this area. As we come back out, if you want, to the ground here, they're even bringing in some more officers officers on the other side of that white van, if we're looking at the ground shot, to try to really secure LAPD headquarters, with the thought is that a lot of those protesters may make a run for it. Little Tokyos are being flushed out of there, move across first, move across second over here to Maine, and they don't want to have any problems over there. But really, at this late hour, it's a matter of sealing off that group of protesters, as you've been watching from Skyfox. Keep them moving, and as the chief was saying, and we've heard from LAPD, they will make arrests, as the tolerance for this, as we're into the fourth night, certainly is wearing very, very thin out here on the front lines.
We'll check back in with you in a moment. There are protests going on in other areas, including Santa Ana. We've been talking so much about downtown LA in the last few days. Fox 11's Gina Silva live in Orange County for us tonight, and things have gotten tense there, Gina.
It is wild out here right now. Let me just move out of the way so you can see people have started running in this direction, obviously because there have been the deputies are deploying smoke canisters and firing pepper balls to disperse the crowd. Dispersal orders have been issued. They were issued quite a while ago, but as you can see, no one is leaving. Everyone is sort of staying here and at times, of course, taunting law enforcement. It didn't start this way. It started peacefully. Around 200 protesters rallied against ICE. Many talked about how they saw videos on social media of aggressive takedowns by ICE in their community, and that is what brought them out here to Santa Ana. The demonstration included families, local activists. You hear that? I mean, it is just so loud. And that's what we've been hearing tonight. As soon as we got here, we were nowhere near the deputies, and the smoke was in the air. The pepper spray was in the air. It hit us so strong, I couldn't breathe. All of a sudden, my eyes were burning. So if you're really close to it, you can just imagine how powerful that is. Again, I'm sorry?
You have to go.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Security is telling us we have to leave.
All right.
All of this escalated. I'll just briefly tell you, all of this escalated when the demonstrators attempted to block a federal van from leaving the building, and that is when things got out of control. I mean, obviously, they started to try to get people to let them leave the area. Where are we going?
Gina, as you are there trying to get to a safe place as you bring us this very important coverage, we should note that there is a presence of the Santa Ana Police Department as well as the Orange County Sheriff's Department there on the scene. And you are right, it has escalated tonight. When we first took this live shot around 8, give or take, they had then shortly after that issued that order to disperse. This is quite a scene of much more chaos here tonight.
Let's let them go. All right, Gina, you get to a safe location, and we will check back in with you later.
Fireworks, smoke grenades, and a crowd that is clearly looking for trouble in downtown LA. Still going late there in downtown, where our Laura Diaz has been all night. Laura.
Yes, Christine, we are at San Pedro in First. Earlier, we were at San Pedro in Second, but that's where about an hour ago, everything was very peaceful, and then all of a sudden it turned. People were actually sitting. They were staging a protest in the form of a sit-down. And then at some point, somebody started letting fireworks go towards the officers, and that seemed to aggravate everything. At that point, authorities were telling the crowd that they had to push back, and it just got more and more contentious. And then at some point, we know that the concussion grenades were released. So there was a lot of running and screaming and people pushing back, and we were in that crowd too, running, trying not to get swallowed up into that mob of people as they ran, because that's very dangerous in itself, right, if you're in the wrong position. So now things have calmed down. Just moments ago, we saw sort of a convoy of CHP coming in, and they came in with lights and sirens, trying to show that they were going to clear the streets. They have asked people to go home, but what you generally find is that people move from one area to the next, and that's what we're seeing now. I would say that the level of excitement and anxiety and anger has toned down quite a bit from about 20 minutes ago, but people are still here. They're still standing on the street. We are in the heart of Little Tokyo, an area that many people come to enjoy a nice dinner out. But tonight, it's not about that at all. It's about people expressing themselves. Some are doing it peacefully, some are not. And law enforcement here trying to keep a lid on it so that things do not happen and property and people get hurt. But a lot of emotion here on the streets of downtown LA. Laura Diaz reporting live from Little Tokyo, sending it back to the studio.
As we're looking at your shot there, Laura, I can't help but notice all the things that have been tagged there behind you and all the graffiti there. I'm sure it's tied to this protest scene here in the downtown LA area. For those who are watching from an international space or around the country, Little Tokyo is just south of the City Hall of downtown LA, where we had Gina Silva. She is in Orange County. Goes to show you how widespread the pockets are of these protests. And there you have LAPD as well. The LA County Sheriff's Department has also been in the downtown LA area as well. Yeah. It all started down there with a big rally at Grand Park, and that was an organized rally with announcements going out, and it spilled over to more of this organic kind of get-together here of people who are just staying late into the night despite police asking them to move.
And Laura, it felt like sort of the sort of fever in all of this had broken, meaning it felt like maybe we were finally starting to calm down out of this, and then within the last hour things seemed to change. How do you compare and contrast tonight versus some of the other times that you've been out in the last few days?
Well, I was out on Saturday, and we were there when the pepper spray was sent out, and people, responded in a strong way to that. The same thing happened tonight, but it started with the fireworks. That they let a few of them go off, and the law enforcement tried to keep, a steady head about it. But then it was like the entire sky was lighted up with fireworks, and it was dangerous. So at that point, they had to push the crowd back. We were part of that crowd, and as people started to run, it was a stampede. And of course, because we work in the business, we are hooked up with cables. It's not that easy to run. We're trying as well as we can to move swiftly, but to be mindful of the equipment and not tripping over it or not tripping somebody else. And by then, of course, they had released those smoke bombs, so we're coughing, your eyes are stinging, it's hard to breathe. So all of that is happening at once. So I would say tonight was probably the most stress I saw. I didn't work yesterday, but today it turned like in 5 minutes. All of a sudden, it went from being somewhat tranquil to a situation you needed to remove yourself from.
Well, not only is it stressful, it's been several days of stress for law enforcement, for our cities, for those who are concerned about their families and friends, given the ICE activity and the ICE raids, and even for really anybody involved in all of this. It's high stress level right now. It is a Monday. As Alex noted, that we thought perhaps maybe things were calming down. We had a huge crowd in front of the federal building. That did thin out as the hours went by, and the police moved in to move that crowd away from the front of the federal building. And now you have people still gathering late tonight on a Monday night.
All right, Laura Diaz, we will continue to check in with you over the next several hours of our coverage, but we want to get to a story that's new at 10.
Right. Authorities have now identified the man they say threw rocks at Border Patrol vehicles Saturday in Paramount, injuring one of their agents.
Yeah, we want to show you his picture. He is accused of assault on a federal officer. Fox 11's Matthew Seedorf broke this story online. It's a story you'll see only here on Fox 11.
An urgent manhunt now underway for the man seen in this viral video launching rocks like missiles at Border Patrol.
He thinks he's untouchable, and what he's finding out tonight is he's unleashed the power of the federal government. We will find him.
On Saturday, Border Patrol had a staging area in Paramount when they were confronted by protesters. Agitators then started throwing glass bottles and concrete chunks towards authorities. while Border Patrol agents fired back with pepper spray and rubber bullets.
As our agents were leaving the area, rocks were thrown, severely injuring one of our agents on his hand.
This video, obtained exclusively by Fox, shows Border Patrol agents leaving the tense standoff Saturday, taking on rocks, injuring one of the agents. The FBI using social media videos and our Fox 11 report to identify the rock thrower as 40-year-old Elpidio Reyna.
I think you interviewed him yourself, where he was trying to get trucks to block the Border Patrol officers from doing their job.
If you think this getting out of hand, I'll patrol everybody right now.
Anybody who assaulted our officers, we've got the FBI working around the clock. We have agents out there. We will find you, we will arrest you, and we will charge you.
We're not going to be deterred in what we do for immigration enforcement.
4 days of chaos across the LA area. Officials now combing through video for more arrests while saying the violence won't slow them down.
We have a mission here in Los Angeles. We won't be deterred from that mission, whether it's arresting illegal aliens or protecting federal facilities. We're going to do that.
Anyone thinks that this guy or any other thug out there is going to stop us from doing our job, they got to think again. We're doubling our resources. There's going to be even more enforcement in the city of Los Angeles now because of the activities you're seeing on TV.
Reporting in downtown LA, Matthew Seedorf, Fox 11 News.
You know, this story became personal for Matthew Seedorf and his photographer Sam Dubin. While they were covering that, their Fox 11 news van was totaled and destroyed by criminals out there who broke the windows and stole stuff and slashed the tires. In the midst of all of that, a reminder that this, you know, so many different people have been impacted by this.
You posted that video online where you saw just the complete destruction of that vehicle and everything stolen. And that's reminiscent of when I covered the 1992 riots. We had scenes like that as well.
Yeah,
but
and,
yes,
and I saw at one of our competitors' news vans tonight got tagged and damaged tonight as well.
All right, we'll keep you updated on that story right there.
Yeah.
We haven't really covered the weather in a couple of days, it seems, because we've been so focused on what's been happening with the protests. So, Adam Kruger, how's it looking out there?
Yeah, I'll just dip in here for a minute or two, as I know people got to go about their business and go about their day tomorrow. So here's what you can expect. First of all, we'll start right now. We've got temperatures in most areas between 60 and 70 degrees. All of these areas in green in the 60s for the most part. Overnight lows, we drop down to around 60 on average, which is what we've seen over the last couple of nights. No big changes there. Also, no big changes here in the fact that we're going to see that June gloom. The clouds show up in the morning. So here's a look at 7 a.m. You see that cloud cover fill in. It gradually goes away as we get later into the day. Here's 10 a.m. Clouds are starting to break up. As we go a little later in the afternoon, we get a lot of sun, but notice those clouds still hang out over some of the coastline into tomorrow afternoon. And that's going to cause some spots to be quite a bit cooler than just a little bit farther inland, which is kind of what we've had at times over the last several days. Here's a look at our forecast highs for tomorrow. We are warming up, by the way. That's I didn't mean to bury the lead, but we have a warming trend for this week. So we'll probably get up to around 80 or low 80s in LA tomorrow, which will be the warmest in about 10 days. Farther inland will be even warmer, 80s to maybe some 90s across some of the valleys in the Inland Empire. I think we're going to find temperatures in the 90s as well. And then across the deserts, we expect the heat with the 100s, maybe close to around 110 out towards Palm Springs. So again, I talked about that warming trend, and as long as things go as planned here through our newscast, I'll be back later with that 7-day forecast. For now, we'll head back to you.
All right, our team coverage of the immigration protests continue.
And local school districts reacting to the immigration raids. What the head of LAUSD has to say when we come back. We continue to follow breaking news. We've got protests going right now in downtown LA and also here in Santa Ana. This is a live picture from Orange County. You can see folks have taken over the streets. It has gotten contentious and tense, so much so that our colleague Gina Silva had to move out of the area because, as you saw in her earlier report, people were threatening her and she had to go. You can see people, we do see law enforcement that are out trying to keep the peace. This is a shot at Broadway there in the Santa Ana area, and it looks like folks are there trying to at least have a line in that spot, hopefully trying to let people sort of blow off their steam at the 10 o'clock hour. But Santa Ana has become a bit of a flashpoint in the last few days.
You have police there on the ground in Santa Ana as well as the Sheriff's Department. What you don't see is the Civic Center area, which is where we first encountered the protests this evening. Police had issued an order to disperse. They did push forward, and it looks like the crowd was moved away from the city government part of Santa Ana. Also, the Orange County Register reported that there were ICE operations in the Orange County area, including Santa Ana, just yesterday, and that perhaps could be what fueled some of the protests here today.
And we don't know when more ICE operations are scheduled. It's the argument from both LA Mayor Bass and Governor Newsom, basically saying that every time you're going to do one of these raids, it's going to antagonize people and could keep this thing going. We know that the National Guard was ordered by President Trump for, I think, 60 days. He asked for another 2,000 troops today. So this may not be a 1 or 2 night thing. I mean, this could go on for a little while in the streets, and it seems like the federal government at least is planning for this to be you know, not a super short-term operation.
And what we're hearing from at least members of the Los Angeles city government, such as the mayor and the police chief, they aren't given word of when these ICE operations are taking place or where, that they're learning about it after they've already kind of gone in. That could be the case as well with Santa Ana as well, it being a sanctuary city. You see the crowd with a little bit of movement there. Again, we have the Sheriff's Department assisting there in Santa Ana as well. And the reports are of the ICE operations in that area across the city. One outside of Home Depot, we've heard about that before as well. A business park and a commercial area, according to the Orange County Rapid Response Network. The Rapid Response Network in LA is one of the organizations also that has been assisting in these issues and providing details and information.
So there you go. And so we will see what happens there. Meanwhile, on the bottom of your screen, it looks like we're in downtown LA. Can we take that picture full? Looks like we've got some activity there. We're on the move. Is this Laura's camera? Obviously, it looks like we're in the middle of what's a tense situation. Walking through the streets. Earlier, Laura talked about the fact that these protesters were often on the streets because if there was a dispersal order, as long as they continue to move, they were not necessarily in violation of the law, so that there was an incentive to keep moving through the streets. But that also means a larger area potentially impacted by all of this. And you see, you know, there are folks that are peaceful and just kind of going about their business. And people that are there to document it and people to check out what's happening, and then, you know, some people who are potentially up to no good, all in one pretty small space.
Yeah, this is the Little Tokyo area that we've been following throughout the night here, and we talk about how the protests kind of shift to different streets. This is the first we've seen of protests that have drifted to the Little Tokyo area in our several days of coverage here. And you can see it's a Monday night in Los Angeles, and the crowd is still out there. All right, so we have this story here. Governor Newsom is suing President Trump over the deployment of the National Guard, claiming that that move was illegal and unconstitutional. You see video from earlier there on your screen there. Fox 11 legal analyst Mary David joined us during the 8 o'clock hour to tell us about the legality of that lawsuit. And here's what she had to say.
I think that it is going to be an issue for President Trump that, you know, there are two issues here. One is the fact that in order for the statute to really be enacted, it's really only in 3 scenarios. That's, you know, in a foreign invasion situation, or if there's an issue with local laws prohibiting federal laws from taking effect. But what Trump is going to argue is that this was allowed because of this being a situation of a rebellion. But for a rebellion, the courts are going to look at what was the level of force that was actually being used, what was the purpose of the protests, and how much force and threats of violence really were meriting the use of this being really a power that the president should be exercising.
The other thing that the president could do is declare an insurrection, which gives him actually even more power and is harder to challenge and could allow him to use the military to do some of this enforcement. He has not done that yet, but he is thinking about it.
And today we saw the National Guard and Homeland Security really just in front of the federal building in downtown LA. And at one point, LAPD stopped the protests and moved the crowd away from the front of that entrance where they were there protecting that federal building.
And we now know the Marines are on their way
And
from
more National
29
Guard.
Palms. We don't know exactly what the Marines are going to do, but we do have reports that they're on their way, according to the Department of Defense. All right, coming up, ICE agents cracking down on undocumented immigrants. We continue team coverage from Los Angeles and from Santa Ana when we come back.
Reports are coming in from residents of Huntington Park and surrounding areas that ICE agents were seen in several places across the southeast greater LA area.
In one case, it even caused a panic at a school graduation. Fox 11's Gina Silva tells us what's going on.
Border Patrol here in Huntington Park.
Hey, let them go!
Videos of ICE agents spotted in numerous Southeast LA County communities are spreading across social media, causing fear and confusion.
Currently at my daughter's graduation, they didn't let us leave. They blocked off the doors. ICE was outside.
That is the reason why city officials from Huntington Park, Maywood, Bell, Cudahy, Southgate, Vernon, Bell, and Linwood are speaking out.
This is what it was always about. It was always about creating chaos. It was always about creating fear. It was always about trying to make us hide.
We see the fear on all our families, and it's so emotional and difficult to see all this.
Miles Elementary was graduating at HP High School. Very quickly, rumors started spreading that ICE was outside. The auditorium erupted into chaos. Families that were supposed to be celebrating one of their child's achievements, a milestone, was turned into a horror and terrifying experience, with the fear that they might not be able to spend the next day or continue to be a part of their family.
These local mayors are urging residents to stay calm and report any ICE activity, either on social media or through the Rapid Response Network in Los Angeles. They're also reminding community members to know their rights.
If ICE comes to your door or your car, you have the right to not open the door until you see a judicial warrant signed by the judge. You also have the right to remain silent and speak to an attorney prior to. We also ask that you do not sign anything until you speak to your lawyer and they are present with you.
And this is Ed Lascos tonight live downtown LA, a lightning bolt here of activity, dramatic activity. LAPD, law enforcement on the move, protesters on the move, a wild scene unfolding. Stand by for the latest.
And we've got some weather to talk about. It's a warmer pattern this week that's going to last all the way into the upcoming weekend. I've got your 7-day forecast after the break.
President Trump is not backing down. Today he announced he is deploying another 2,000 members of the National Guard.
And hundreds of Marines to control the anti-ICE demonstrations.
We continue our live team coverage tonight. Ed Lascos, Laura Diaz, both in downtown L.A. Let's start with Ed.
And a dramatic situation here continues to unfold. Little Tokyo's where all the action is happening. We're right by LAPD headquarters. Joe will give you a look. We're looking down First here. We're at First and Main. That's First in the direction of Los Angeles Street. And that crowd that's been really dug into the heart of Little Tokyo the last couple of hours seemingly is on the move. Many of them are moving up in that direction on Los Angeles Street, and many of them are heading actually toward the freeway, something we saw the last couple of nights. So much so in the last 5 minutes, a convoy of CHP officers, about a dozen others of so, lights and sirens, rushing down, heading over to guard some of the ramps there to keep that crowd from heading over to the freeway, the 101. Now you're looking, this is the main headquarters, LAPD, right across from City Hall. That is the a line of officers protecting their home base. They moved in here about half hour ago. Again, maybe a convoy of 3 dozen, 4 dozen black and whites roaring through here, roaring through the streets. They set up here, setting up right around the front entrance, the side entrance of LAPD, and a lot of the focus with the ships, the LAPD sky ships, and their night sun shining down. It's been in the Little Tokyo area, but now focusing on Los Angeles Street as it heads over to the Hollywood freeway, and the crowd is moving. We've been hearing also a lot of the flashbangs that police have been using, trying to get the crowd of protesters to move along, and also at times some fireworks, presumably fireworks, very loud noises, bangs that roar through. And if it's an interesting point here, there's a group of coyotes in some of the bushes, and when those bangs go off, those coyotes run like crazy down First Street, down Main Street. But in any event, a very tense situation here. LAPD on the move, CHP on the move, moving toward the Hollywood freeway. Very much still a cat and mouse game with the protesters moving through, LAPD trying to follow, trying to stay one step ahead of them as we go back to the west side.
Ed Lascos, thank you. We stay now in downtown L.A. Laura Diaz is in another location for us tonight. Laura.
Yes, Alex, we are at First in San Pedro. When I first started the evening, we were at Second in San Pedro, but that's where that group that originally did a sit down, it was all very peaceful. In a matter of 30 minutes, it turned ugly. They started letting off fireworks, and then at that point, you know, the law enforcement responded to that with pepper spray, and then everybody started running. Now, we have that video for you. We're going to play it right now. Let's listen. It was very tense as everybody ran. It was a stampede, and I was running with my camera crew and our security detail, trying to run with this cable in between us and stay out of the way of this crowd that simply was not paying attention. They just wanted to get out of the way. Let's listen. Yeah, it's getting ugly out here. It's getting ugly. Okay. Okay. So for our own safety, we left the immediate area. Of course, we were all coughing. Our eyes were stinging from that, you know, substance that went up into the air. I can tell you this, that people pushed back and they went further out on San Pedro, which is where we are right now. We've only moved about a block. At one point, we saw 2 guys that were pushing big, huge dumpsters with graffiti all over them, using it as some kind of a barricade to go toward law enforcement that was pushing down the street. At one point, we saw another guy with an entire satchel full of rocks, and then we saw people pulling pieces of cement, presumably to throw at law enforcement. I didn't actually see them throw it, but they were certainly getting ready for it. And you know, as somebody who's lived here my whole life, I have to say something on behalf of all the merchants. It breaks my heart to see people who've worked so hard to create their stores and their restaurants, and they're covered in graffiti. So the people who had good intent in their heart to go out and talk about what their concerns were, to be able to express themselves as we're allowed to do in this country, and then it de-escalates into something that is so ugly and awful, and the merchants who have nothing to do with any of this will now have to clean up their businesses. And you can't help but witness it as you're walking through the streets and feel for them, because they have nothing to do with this. But that is the scene here in downtown LA. Every once in a while it's punctuated by some kind of a flashbang or smoke in the air or people running and screaming. But that is the scene here, and we are staying close by in downtown Los Angeles, continuing to report on it. I did hear one report that there was an officer in distress about a block over. I can't confirm that I saw it with my own eyes, but certainly they're trying to push people out of this area. I'm Laura Diaz reporting live, sending it back to the studio.
Yeah, and Laura, I think about when I saw the video of that dramatic moment, all the people that were documenting it with cell phones, and I think about the way that protests used to be covered maybe 20, 30 years ago. It was all just sort of the old school cameras, and now so many people are out there with phones in everybody's face. It's a totally different scene.
Yeah, they're live streaming it, a lot of people. And, you know, many people are going on social media to find out where to show up. It's possible to look at a map that's in real time. And so they gravitate to that section. And so it creates its own energy, if you will, Alex. And we're seeing a lot of that tonight. So people respond in real time. And then I think, quite frankly, it works up everybody. It gets the adrenaline pumping, and people act out and they take it to that next level. So it is a very potentially dangerous push and pull that's going on at this hour.
All right, Laura, thank you very much. We go from Little Tokyo to Santa Ana, where we've seen equal unruliness and unrest there tonight. You can see that some barricades have been put up right there. You have law enforcement, looks like the sheriff's department there. Not sure if they put that up there to keep vehicles and people from coming through, but that's where they are positioned right now. It is a quieter scene when it comes to a crowd of people, so don't know if they were able to push back that crowd. It's hard to tell in this tight shot here.
We're going to sneak in a quick break. More news after this. Time now to talk about our weather, which is something we've sort of put on the back burner.
Sure.
But
here to do my part, you know. So we're actually talking about warmer weather for this week. Temperatures may hit 80 degrees for the first time in more than a week in Los Angeles, and we're going to ride this warm wave for a while. Not what I would call a heat wave, but it will be just a little bit warmer. And here's, you know, a live view of something maybe a little more pleasant than what we've been looking at all night long here. Live shot in Santa Monica. We've got some clouds that are starting to roll in right now, by the way, and that's going to be one of the things we're talking about. One of the things that we'll keep seeing over the next several nights and mornings is that typical June gloom. We'll get to that in a moment. All right, let's look at today. Right on the dot, 76 degrees for downtown, which is average for this time of year. We will be going above that average by a few degrees over the next couple of days. So our headlines, again, more of these June gloom mornings for the foreseeable future. The next 6 to 7 days, it looks like that's going to be the case. We're going to see this warmer pattern last all week, and then it probably, or it could anyways, get even a little bit warmer for our upcoming weekend. Overnight lows around 60 degrees for most locations. Of course, there's some exceptions. Warmer in the desert. Palm Springs, probably upper 70s. Big Bear falling to the 40s overnight. LA tomorrow morning, we start with the clouds in the low 60s, upper 60s by 10. We're in the 70s at noon. And then we do expect to reach 80. Last time that happened for downtown LA was the first day of this month, so it's been a little while. So we've got that warm up coming. Notice near the coast it is going to be a little bit cooler, but farther inland even warmer. So up into the valleys, 80s easily. I think the San Fernando Valley, it's mostly 80s, but the Inland Empire probably more so 90s. Although also up towards Santa Clarita, we expect some 90s as well. And then we've got those 100s in the desert, especially hot in Palm Springs at 110. Here's kind of just a map of where we expect the clouds in the morning. That's a look at 7 a.m. They will kind of go away. You know that pattern by now. We've seen it for several days. By midday, sunny everywhere for the most part. Notice, though, in the afternoon, it's still possible that right along the coast in some spots, some of the beaches may have clouds lingering over them. And if that's the case, it's going to be even cooler. So if that happens, we're probably going to find some 60s at some point in the afternoon tomorrow under those clouds for the beaches. And that'll probably be a kind of a contrast to the 110 or so that's possible out towards Palm Springs. We'll have this huge range in temperatures as we sometimes get this time of year. But overall, it is a warmer pattern, high pressure helping to bring those warmer temps for several days. Here we are through Wednesday. We go into Friday. There might be this low trying to nudge in here that would push temperatures down like a degree or two, and then high pressure kind of wins back out as we go into the upcoming weekend, which again probably brings those temperatures back up a little bit. So our 7-day forecast now. The coast, you won't see a whole lot of change. It's low 70s for a while. Again, clouds and some patchy fog for several mornings. We get into the weekend, which includes Father's Day, and it should be warmer. LA, Inland Orange County, low 80s for a while, mid 80s by the weekend. Valleys and IE in the 80s for a while, and then up to about 90 this weekend. Although, again, I think the IE probably sees some 90s the next couple of days. Mountains will be warm. High desert, we've got 100s and 90s, and the low desert temperatures between 105 and 110 for several days in a row. Fox 11 News is back right after this break.
Fox 11 Entertainment is sponsored by Yamava Resort and Casino.
New reality competition shows coming to Fox 11 promises lots of plotting, scheming, and strategy.
I filled in for Harvey Levin on TMZ Live today, and I got to ask the host of that show, comedian Jim Jeffries, about it.
Tell us about the snake. What is the snake?
Well, first of all, I think I might be the first Australian game show host on American TV, and I think it's because the show's called The Snake. I think you all want to hear it in this accent. Welcome to the snake. That's not a snake. So it's three parts. It's a little bit Fear Factor. It's a little bit Big Brother. It's a little bit Survivor. We were in the Argentinian jungle, but they live in a nice house and they're fed well and that type of stuff. And then there's challenges where they have to eat gross food or do some task that's a bit difficult. Whoever wins the task.
The Snake premieres tomorrow at 9 p.m. right here on Fox 11, right before our show. By the way, I'll be back hosting TMZ Live tomorrow at 4 and TMZ on TV tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. right here on Fox 11.
So on behalf of the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce, I proudly declare today Christian Slater Day in Hollywood!
How awesome is that? Actor Christian Slater getting a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Slater has a career spanning film, TV, and stage. He worked on Broadway before moving to L.A. in 1987, where he starred in The Legend of Billie Jean. And in the cult classic Heathers, here's a look, and so much more, right? Here's a look at the upcoming shows at Yamava.
Ed Lascos reporting for us live now. Ed.
Yeah, it is a very, very a crazy scene here. All of a sudden, like in the last 5 minutes, it just exploded. You're looking at the 1st and Main. That's the LAPD, the corner of it, and they've been blasting with a lot of the non-lethal munitions right across the street, another one of the city buildings, because that crowd that's been really focused in on Little Tokyo is now moved up 1st, moved up Main, and they were running around through here, also tagging up part of the LA City Hall right across the street on Main. You can see the crowd right over there. Joe, give you a look to the left. They've been over there tagging, so all of this has turned a bit very explosive, if you will, in the last 10 minutes. LAPD using some of the flashbangs, the flash grenades, to try to get that crowd away from some of the buildings here along Main, and that's the point of the attention right now. They're also moving in some more units, LAPD, into City Hall itself, some of the surrounding frontage of the City Hall. Joe, let's swing around here real quick, give the folks a look. Talking about LA City Hall here, this is, remember where the Occupy movement was, in this yard, this lawn area here several years ago, but now LAPD even deploying over here to protect City Hall itself, making sure that the taggers don't move in here, the protesters don't move in here. But again, many of them moving from Little Tokyo, moving up 1st Street, moving up Main, many of them heading over toward the Hollywood freeway. Again, the 101, we saw many convoys of CHP and some more LAPD black and white units running over there. But this crowd is really the crowd that we've been seeing and watching, that Laura Diaz has been at over in the Little Tokyo area. They've been able to get them to move out, but now they're moving in this direction, moving over towards City Hall, and all of a sudden it's become just a very dicey, tense situation as we head back to West LA. Alex?
Back to you within a minute as we wrap things up for this hour here on Fox 11. This is usually when we will say goodbye for the Fox 11 News at 10. Let's go to Laura Diaz real quick for a check-in in Santa Ana.
Alex, I'm here in downtown Los Angeles. We are standing not far from LAPD headquarters, where they have been firing non-lethal weapons at the crowd. We were actually crouched down behind a wall up until a couple of minutes ago. People were racing to get out of the way. And I think what provoked that is that there was a woman throwing golf balls at the police, at a car. And so they took a strong reaction to that. You can see there's a whole bunch of them right in front of LAPD headquarters. We are at Main Street, and so that is the latest here. It has been an ebb and flow all night, trying to get some peace restored here. Laura Diaz reporting live from downtown, sending it back to you.
All right, Laura, thank you. As we are continuing our coverage here on Fox 11, we are now going to switch over to LA Live tonight, so stay with us. Our coverage is continuing right here. We have been monitoring situations in downtown LA and Santa Ana on this Monday night.
Yeah, and this is the usual time of night where we would say good night, LA. Our colleague Marla Tejas is on maternity leave. Alex Michelson, Christine Devine here filling in tonight as we welcome in our viewers who are now just joining us on Fox 11 Plus, our sister station. We've been on Fox 11 for the last hour, showing the 4th night of these demonstrations across Southern California. Tonight, most of the action has been happening in downtown LA and Santa Ana, and we've got team coverage of all of it. Here's the latest at 11 o'clock tonight.
We have this lineup to tell you about protests in downtown LA and Orange County over immigration enforcement escalating in different regions today. Demonstrators have clashed with law enforcement for 4 days, setting vehicles on fire. The protests began after union leader David Huerta was detained during an ICE raid Friday. Those protests today in downtown LA. He's since been released on a $50,000 bond.
To face criminal charges down the road. Now, to address that unrest, President Trump has authorized 2,000 National Guard troops. 700 Marines are being deployed to assist, even though the governor of California strongly doesn't want them here and is now suing to try to stop the Marines and to stop the National Guard, to try to rescind that order and get them out of here.
So far, over 70 people have been arrested. LAPD Chief Jim McDonnell says there will be more. 5 LAPD officers have been injured. Officials say the National Guard is armed but has no bullets in their chambers. The situation remains tense as protests continue.
So tonight, the FBI is searching for 40-year-old Elpidio Reyna, accused of throwing rocks at officers and Border Patrol vehicles during a protest in Paramount on Saturday.
And we had that video. One agent was injured in that rock scenario. Now $50,000 reward is being offered for information leading to the arrest of the man you see right there on your screen.
Yeah, Fox 11's Matthew Seedorf breaking that story after him and his photographer Sam Dubin first captured this video. So that's believed to be the man who is responsible for throwing all of that. We'll see if law enforcement is able to apprehend him now with the public's help. And here is Matthew's report.
An urgent manhunt now underway for the man seen in this viral video launching rocks like missiles at Border Patrol.
He thinks he's untouchable, and what he's finding out tonight is he's unleashed the power of the federal government. We will find him.
On Saturday, Border Patrol had a staging area in Paramount when they were confronted by protesters. Agitators then started throwing glass bottles and concrete chunks towards authorities, while Border Patrol agents fired back with pepper spray and rubber bullets.
As our agents were leaving the area, rocks were thrown, severely injuring one of our agents on his hand.
This video, obtained exclusively by Fox, shows Border Patrol agents leaving the tense standoff Saturday, taking on rocks, injuring one of the agents. The FBI using social media videos and our Fox 11 report to identify the rock thrower as 40-year-old Elpidio Reyna.
I think you interviewed him yourself, where he was trying to get trucks to block the Border Patrol officers from doing their job.
If you think this is getting out of hand, I'll patrol everybody right now.
Anybody who assaulted our officers, we've got the FBI working around the clock. We have agents out there. We will find you, we will arrest you, and we will charge you.
We're not going to be deterred in what we do for immigration enforcement.
4 days of chaos across the LA area. Officials now combing through video for more arrests while saying the violence won't slow them down.
We have a mission here in Los Angeles. We won't be deterred from that mission, whether it's arresting illegal aliens or protecting federal facilities. We're going to do that.
If anyone thinks that this guy or any other thug out there is going to stop us from doing our job, they got to think again. We're doubling our resources. There's going to be even more enforcement in the city of Los Angeles now because of the activities you're seeing on TV.
Reporting in downtown LA, Matthew Seedorf, Fox 11 News.
Matthew, thank you. A live picture now from downtown LA. This is from Skyfox. When we talk about the mostly peaceful protesters, yeah, that's not these folks.
What is that creation?
They are clearly not explaining their complicated views on how to fix the immigration system. This is when we talk about the anarchists, when we talk about the agitators, when we talk about the same people that come out to downtown LA that I've been seeing in the field 15 years ago would see these people that would do this sort of thing. This is what we're talking about. They are clearly there to try to mess things up, and right near the Shohei Ohtani mural that Robert Vargas painted there. And they are just there to sow chaos, and they are not being arrested right now. And law enforcement is just looking on and watching this all happen.
That is in the Little Tokyo area still, and as we saw the setup that they have there, they created quite something there with the fencing that they set up and that large white whatever it is that they're able to set on fire. And obviously you can see that they are quite organized in what they're doing there. Law enforcement is right there,
not big
but you're right. This is the kind of unrest.
What are we doing here? We're going to throw the flames now?
Are they starting that car on?
Are they going to try to set that on fire? And they clearly don't seem to be big fans of the president based off of the language that they spray painted on that thing. So,
look how that person is maneuvering around and trying to find shelter to get somewhere. You're right. These are the people that are causing the destruction. Laura Diaz talked about the businesses And that as we are watching this here, we actually want to get some perspective from law enforcement as we're watching this. And we know deputies there from LA are on the ground there with LAPD. So let me bring in Nick Wilson, who's spokesman for the Los Angeles Sheriff's Professional Association. Nick, thanks for joining us. First off, as you're watching this scene, just describe how you're feeling about what we're seeing right here.
Well, it's very unsettling, and as you can see, that you're watching people who are working in concert. These are not peaceful protesters. These are not demonstrators. These are riotous thugs that are working to assault law enforcement and disobey commands to cease their riotous behavior. And you see them moving in tactical type of formations, which is indicative of pre-planned behavior to assault law enforcement. Look, at the end of the day, we've got a department right now that is under siege. The county of Los Angeles is under siege. We've got multiple deputies that have been injured, including LAPD. And this is already a strained department that is overworked, that are facing mandatory overtime shifts, and a department right now that is in crisis. Public safety is at risk right now, and leadership needs to stand up and actually respond to maintain public safety. That is their sole responsibility.
So I'm obviously have never worked in law enforcement, so excuse me if this is an ignorant question, but I think there's got to be some other people that are wondering it too. We see all sorts of law enforcement out there. There's not that many people that are left behind here. They're all clearly causing problems. Why not move in and arrest some of these people?
Well, the tactics right now that are being displayed by, I'm assuming it's LAPD right now, is a measured response because of politically motivated agendas. The natural response to these things is to end it quick and make sure that public safety is maintained. Right now, what you're seeing is a very measured response to capitulate, unfortunately, to city leaders. This is all politically designed, and unfortunately, this is not any longer about immigration. This is about preserving the peace and maintaining a good response that is going to keep the citizens of Los Angeles safe.
Meaning, what do you mean when you say, I mean, obviously you're hinting at something, but what exactly do you mean by politically motivated on that front?
Well, at the end of the day, these people are displaying very violent behavior. They're looting, they're rioting. Let's call it what it is. These aren't protests. Unfortunately, Mayor Bass, county officials within the county of Los Angeles, city officials within the city of Los Angeles do not want to assist federal law enforcement agencies upon a call for help and assistance to maintain order, because they don't want to be seen as being involved in immigration raids. This is not an immigration raid. At this point, this is a response to maintain public order, and any field within the country, upon being called for assistance, any law enforcement officer right now on the street wants to respond to regain control and operational command and control of the city streets within their jurisdiction. It's not happening. It's not happening right now because they're capitulating politically, and that's why you're seeing what you're seeing. If there was no measured response, none of this would be happening.
I want to ask you about the defense of law enforcement. You represent 3,000 sheriff's deputies in LA County. We also saw Orange County deputies turn out as well. You talked about the stress of the job in general. We've covered that story as well. And now you have a situation like this where you have 4 days of protests. What is it like for the officers there on the front lines?
It's unfathomable. They are working mandatory overtime. We've had, at least within the LA County Sheriff's Department, 14 suicides. You're working mandatory back-to-back doubles and triples. We've got multiple members right now that are working up to 12 days straight. This is not sustainable. They are overworked. They are exhausted. They are about 25 positions down right now within the LA County Sheriff's Department. Operationally, within the county, this cannot sustain itself. So while this is a short-term situation that we're seeing unfold right now on your screens, long-term, this is not sustainable. So, good for the president and good for the administration for calling in the National Guard and the Marines to maintain order, because local officials refuse at the command staff level to do so. And our deputies and all of our law enforcement deserve better. They've been left behind. They feel abandoned. And I'm speaking on behalf of thousands of law enforcement officers right now who do feel abandoned.
Can you talk about the kinds of things that are said to deputies on the ground by some of these folks who are not always the kindest in their comments?
Well, it's some of the most horrific things that you can possibly imagine. They're wishing the death upon law enforcement officers, the death of their families. They are, the death of their children. And as they're doing that, they're throwing bricks, rocks, bottles, injuring deputies and officers. And this is absolutely disgusting. This is why there's a federal response right now in order to maintain order. They are so overworked. This is so unfathomable. This is a repeat of 2020. Everyone sees that. Law enforcement officers right now are experiencing a repeat of what happened 5 years ago. And so what needs to happen is there needs to be command decisions at the top, and our deputies and our law enforcement officers have to be supported right now. Just because federal agents right now are being asked for assistance as they are going about their efforts, it does not mean that local law enforcement are engaging in ICE activities or deportation removals. That's not what's happening. They're asking for assistance to maintain order. And the lack of response and the delayed response is directly attributed to the chaos that you're seeing unfold on your screen. Had there not been a measured response, had there been an appropriate response to this, you would not have seen this county get so out of control. That's why you're seeing it.
The other side of that, though, is the Democratic leadership who says that President Trump's response is politically motivated. And by sending in the National Guard to stand by a building but not necessarily engage with anybody and not even have bullets in their weapons and not necessarily know exactly what their mission is, and to be sending in the Marines without clear instructions, that's really about pictures for TV but not actually all that effective. And we can see they're not helping to stop this. What do you say to that?
Well, I think that is a very, I think that is a narrative that is going around right now. And I think that the Marines and the National Guard do have a clear response. That's to support the boots on the ground right now that are taking bricks, bottles, and are experiencing absolute chaos. Their job right now is to maintain order and to try to reestablish peace right now within the chaotic streets of Los Angeles. And so I think that this is going to come out. I don't think that what we're seeing are, in fact, I know that these are not organic protests. These are not protests. These are very well-funded, operations right now that are meant to divide, disrupt the peace of the city streets of LA.
Well, you and I were talking about a piece of video earlier, which is how you and I connected on this. And sometimes when we mean organized, we are talking about some of the press conferences that have been called by organizations such as at Grand Park or the ones that go before a podium with the microphone. You have some real concerns about these people that are doing this late night activity as well. And you feel that some of this is indeed organized in some fashion.
Without question, I know that this is organized, and without question, I know that this is well-funded and pre-planned.
Who's funding it?
Well, I think that this goes, look, I think at the end of the day, there will be investigations into the pre-operational planning that allowed people or organizations to drop off bricks at pre-designed locations within the city in order to use those bricks and pallets of concrete to drop on the heads of law enforcement. That's what we're seeing on camera. Those did not spontaneously just arrive at pre-disclosed locations. I think that you have city officials, county officials that have been engaged in years of public corruption. And at the end of the day, I think that there's going to be a complete and full investigation that will determine how those things occurred. What you're seeing is not spontaneous in any event. It's just not. And law enforcement on the ground, fully uniformed law enforcement, can't say that. And that's the unfortunate circumstance that we're seeing. This could have been stopped. It wasn't stopped because of politically motivated agendas. And at the end of the day,
I don't see why it can't be stopped right now. I mean, you got all these people out there, and we see what's happening, and every station's showing this happening, and they're smashing up rocks, and they're setting fires on the street, and yet everybody's allowed to just wander and do their thing. And yet, if our parking meter goes 2 minutes too long, there's a ticket right there. How does that happen? I mean, who are we protecting? What are our priorities right now as a society that this guy's allowed to hack the sidewalk, but you know, God forbid, I'm 2 minutes late on my parking meter?
You are so funny. This should be ended right now. And so I would look at the chief of police of Los Angeles, and I would look at the sheriff of LA County, and I would ask those two people those very serious questions, because this could be ended right now. It's not being ended right now, and the people deserve better. This is much broader than just law enforcement community that are under attack that deserve better. The people of LA County, the people of the city of Los Angeles deserve better. Look at what you're seeing. This looks like a third world country right now, what I'm seeing on your screen. And so should this be ended? Can it be ended? Absolutely. Is it? No.
Well, there will be those who will agree with you and those who will disagree with you on the National Guard and the Marines and how that all happened. But my question in general, a lot of people are watching this and have great sympathy for law enforcement and the police officers and sheriff's deputies that are there on the ground. Not sure why this crowd's moving like they are, but at the moment. So my point is, there are people who, despite their political views, do have a sympathy for law enforcement doing a very difficult job over these 4 days. How can people help out if they want to, non-politically at all, they just want to help out law enforcement?
Yeah, Christine, it's a great question. And at the end of the day, you have to take politics out of this entire scenario. The people of Los Angeles, if they want to help, need to call on their elected officials and ask for them to support their troops on the ground, to support their local law enforcement, and make this stop immediately. This has nothing to do with politics, but politics, unfortunately, has immersed itself into the daily operational command and control structure and response of law enforcement. That needs to end. If they want this to end, they need to call on their local officials and ask for them to support their law enforcement officers and bring this to an end immediately, because if not, there will be more destruction to businesses and more injuries to innocent people who are just trying to survive every single day.
Right, and innocent businesses that have been vandalized tonight. And I mean, literally what we were just looking at together was somebody taking a hammer to the sidewalk to then be able to get rocks in their bag to throw at law enforcement. That's what we're watching. I mean, that's what's happening right now live on our cameras, that LAPD headquarters is watching too, that all the different law enforcement agencies that are down there are watching. That's what's going on. And so let's be clear. And the governor of California told me yesterday, and the mayor of Los Angeles told me yesterday, that violence is not okay, that we're not going to accept this sort of thing, that we need to crack down on these thugs and anarchists, and idiots is the word that the governor used. So it's happening now. So when are we going to crack down? What's the time to make that call?
That's a great point.
There's a fire now that's being set.
It is, and this is not the first time. This is called arson. This is a felony. This is an arson, okay? Every single police officer and deputy sheriff right now wants this to end. Because they swear to uphold the peace. They swear to put their lives on the line so that this does not continue. Unfortunately, the governor of California is 100% adding fuel to the flames. His rhetoric is one thing. What he says is one thing. What he does is another. He is absolutely part of the problem that we're seeing here. And so there is a lack of cooperation with the state of California and local officials. There's not our hearts and prayers go out to every single deputy sheriff right now that are just absolutely exhausted and watching this unfold. This could end right now. It's not. And so, law enforcement officers in California are the best trained in the country. LA County Sheriff's Department, best trained in the country. This can end. Unfortunately, you saw the measured response and statements of LA County Sheriff Luna and the LA City Police Chief McDonald, and this is their lack of cooperation and response is why this is happening. That is the only reason this is happening. So that is what needs to change, and I would ask anyone that is watching to call on their local officials and ask them to make this stop.
This all started with protests about immigration and ICE operations. I'm assuming you feel there is a place for peaceful protest.
Absolutely. This is not peaceful. And what a peaceful protest looks like are people who are on the sidewalk. They're not blocking cars. They're not lighting vehicles on fire. They're not bringing hammers to a peaceful protest. They're holding signs and they're chanting. And they're doing these things on the sidewalk, and they're not obstructing vehicles or preventing people from going about their daily business. That is not what we have seen in the last several days. What we have seen is mayhem, chaos, violence, and directed assaults against law enforcement, businesses. Why would people loot and storm innocent convenience store owners' businesses if they're trying to make a point? That's not a protest. That is that's a violent protest, and those people deserve to be in jail, every single one of them. And it could have been prevented from the get-go. That vehicle right now that you see on your screen that is on fire, every single one of those people right now should be cleared out immediately. Fire should be rolling in so that no other vehicles or structures are caught on fire. Those people should be dispersed, and every deputy and officer wants that to happen. You have to ask yourself, why is that not happening? It's not happening because the chain of command at the top is not allowing it to happen, because their measured response right now is that we are not cooperating with ICE deportations. This has gone from deportation operations.
Not ICE deportations right now, though. I mean,
exactly right.
This is with that.
Exactly. This is not an ICE deportation.
Would their argument, I'm trying to be fair to everybody, would their argument be that that them moving in there would actually antagonize the situation even more? So they'd rather let maybe one car burn and a little piece of sidewalk and let these people get it out of their system versus going in there, having the images of a giant police force moving in and actually making things worse. That would be their argument, right?
Sure, and my response would be absolutely not. And every law enforcement official knows this. Appeasement makes the aggressor more aggressive. And as you're seeing, it's exploding and it's becoming more tumultuous there. The appropriate response would be an overwhelming show of force, clear the streets, and use reasonable force to disperse the crowds immediately. That is the response. Every law enforcement officer in the state of California and around the country knows that, because that's how they're trained. It is not to stand by and watch vehicles burn and then just appease the crowd. This is a violent crowd that is impacting public safety as we see it unfolding right now on the screen. No, they need to move in right now.
We know that people around the nation are watching something like this, other parts of the world watching something like this. In your history, as you think of the crowd that's down there right now in this shot that we're looking at, how do you gauge this? How many are just idiots many have a criminal mind here? How many are from outside of LA that just came in just to cause havoc? And how many are actually very upset about what's happening with ICE?
Well, I would say that we have reports that there are thousands of people who are out of state here to create havoc. And I would tell you that anyone that's standing around a burning car and or out at this hour are not there to peacefully protest. Those people right now need to be dispersed. Anyone that you see right now on your screen needs to be dispersed from the area, and public order needs to be restored to the streets of Los Angeles. This is only promulgating and adding, flames to a very chaotic situation. Those people are not there to peacefully protest. In fact, I would argue that the majority of people who might be afraid of the deportation operations going on right now are at home with their families, protecting their families, and safe and sound. That's not who we're seeing on the streets. What we're seeing are people right now intentionally designed and deployed in order to create chaos, and it needs to stop.
Well, we know that Robert Luna, the sheriff, and Jim McDonnell, LAPD chief, they have a lot of experience. Obviously, it's a very difficult situation to deal with a mass amount of people and a large protest over several days. Do you not find wisdom at all in their direction?
I think that their direction is seriously miscalculated. And I think that the chief of Los Angeles is taking orders from Mayor Bass, who has been an absolute disaster in the response to the civil unrest that we're seeing. And I think that Luna, sheriff of Los Angeles County, unfortunately does not know how to respond to this, because this is absolutely a repeat of what he did when he was chief of Long Beach Police Department, when he allowed his city to burn to the ashes and people were affected in ways that have left them devastated ever since. I think that this is a culmination of both. This is not because of politics. These are the facts of what is happening. What you're seeing on your screen right now, it's since the time that we've been on air, could have ended. You know why this continues to burn? Because law enforcement officials are not being given the green light to allow fire to come in and put that fire out and extinguish those flames. That's because of the command control structure right now within law enforcement agencies in LA County that are preventing their law enforcement from putting an end to this. That there's not one law enforcement officer that's going to disagree with me on the response to the chaos. What you have to do is you have to put an end to it immediately. And the only way you can do that is through an appropriate, measured, reasonable use of force, disperse the crowds, extinguish the flames, send everyone home. If you want to maintain peace, that's how you do it.
It is remarkable as we reflect back on 2020, and Christine and I were here, and I remember getting into it with Robert Luna, who was then Long Beach chief, and bringing up a lot of those issues in real time as his city was burning at the time. But what we saw then is when law enforcement made the decision to move in and do exactly what you're saying, they were very effective, and it happened very quickly. And
it's called violent.
And there were nights when they did, when they reached the point, they're like, okay, enough, we're ending this, and it happened fast, and usually happened without major problems. And that clearly decision has not been made yet, and I don't know if it will be made.
Well, I recall when you were actually getting into it with then Chief Luna, now Sheriff Luna, and you asked him very good questions. And I remember him getting very frustrated with you in your questioning. And that is now indicative of what you're seeing. You're seeing the same exact replay of 2020. The only way that you can end this is through, and I'm not talking about a use of force that is that goes so far beyond what's reasonable. I'm talking about just a reasonable response. Right now on your screen, you do not see one uniformed law enforcement personnel. You don't see one fire truck putting that fire out. And this is because of the command center right now within Los Angeles that is refusing to give orders to end this. And so you have to ask yourself, the basic principle for law enforcement in their response is to maintain public order and to make their citizens safe. The people of LA City, both their business owners, the residents, they're safe. That's not what's happening. You're seeing it just go up in flames. That's why right now we are asking Sheriff Robert Luna, Chief McDonald to give the commands to allow their troops to make this basically stop. They can. All they have to do is send them in, make this stop.
Yeah.
Well, we have been trying to interview various people when it comes to this story in general. And as you know, I was messaging with you. Sometimes we get it right. Sometimes we don't. It's a very fluid situation. Trying to get eyes and ears in a lot of different places is very tough in a very big city and county like this, and the counties that we are covering as well, Orange County as well. But we are trying to listen to different voices and get different perspectives. Some strong thoughts by you, Nick Wilson. Thank you so much. The spokesman for the Los Angeles Sheriff's Professional Association. We thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
And we should just point out, we welcome a variety of voices here. We've been grateful that the mayor has joined us several times. We had Sheriff McDonald's press conference. We've taken all those live. We've taken the Chief McDonald, former Sheriff McDonald, taken the current Chief Luna's press conferences as well. And we encourage them, and if they're watching and want to call in, we'd love to hear their perspective as well. We were grateful on night one that Mayor Bass called in around 11:45 at night as we watch all this and hear their perspective on why this is happening the way that it's happening. But I wonder, you know, at what point are we collectively, including our leaders, going to say, okay, enough, we're stopping this, we're done with this, because what we're looking at here, and these people, these idiots, as Governor Newsom said, running around in the streets right now, have nothing to do with immigration reform policy. They couldn't tell you probably the first thing about ICE policy. They are in this to screw with the system, and innocent people, including whoever owns this car and whoever owns the businesses nearby and all the rest of it, are being hurt by their actions.
And noticing there are cars in front of and behind that car, they're on fire. As we continue to watch this, we want to go to the ground. Reporter Laura Diaz is there. Laura?
Yes, Christine and Alex, we're standing in front of LAPD headquarters. You can see it right over my right shoulder. Off to the left is City Hall. It's a much different scene than when we spoke to you last. We know that initially this started over in Little Tokyo, and there was a sit-in there. There were a couple of hundred people. It started out very peacefully, but at some point, everything escalated. The crowd started throwing fireworks at law enforcement, and then law enforcement started setting off the smoke bombs, and so it became a very frenetic situation. That was about an hour and a half ago. Let's see and listen to some of that right now.
Agree with taking criminals out. We don't want criminals here. I don't want my daughter getting raped. I agree with that. But right now you're taking everybody from the Home Depot, someone who's trying to work. Make that make sense. Now I'm mad. Now I'm out here. Take a criminal. I'll bring him to you. But don't take my uncle trying to put a roof over your head.
Immigrants are the backbone of this country. They pay taxes, they have social security numbers, and it's our constitutional right. It's the First Amendment, the freedom of assembly, to be here today and stand up for what we believe in. And I will not have the National Guard threaten us or threaten to throw tear gas at children.
I don't like seeing people get ripped from their homes. You know, I got neighbors, and no person is illegal, right? The family shouldn't be torn apart.
Those were some of the more thoughtful voices of people I interviewed earlier in the evening. It wasn't even dark yet, and there were some thoughtful voices. We've all been talking about the people who've come here and wreaked havoc, but there were people here who were principled, and they were on the streets of LA because they wanted to make a statement. What I was trying to reference earlier in the tape that I was hoping would play, perhaps we can play it now, was when my camera crew and I, and also security, were leaving that spot because all of a sudden it turned very ugly. We had some sound that we can play for you of that event as everybody started running, and there was a stampede, and your eyes were burning and you're coughing, and it was pretty frenetic. Hopefully we can hear that video now, please. Okay, apparently we don't have that video. We played it at the top of the 10. I thought it was, you know, it illustrated what had happened in such a short amount of time. So it's really been like that throughout the evening, where it's quiet and calm, and then all of a sudden things turn. But the LAPD and the other law enforcement agencies, they hung back and they waited and they tried to get people to disperse, but it wasn't until the crowd, some of the crowd, I don't want to say all of the crowd because some people were very law-abiding, but some of them chose to throw those fireworks, and there was another juncture where we know that they were throwing golf balls at a police car going by, and so things escalated, and at that point they had to disperse, and they had to do it with non-lethal weapons. That's how they finally got the crowd to break up. So I want to pull this out and show you some of what was being sprayed into the crowd. These, and if they come at you at a fast pace, they can hurt. I was told by our detail here that they would have even broken through on my jeans. So that was the situation here. It took that to get people to get out of the area and try to restore peace. You can see right now that the black and whites are going down the street, letting people know that they're here. They're not going to put up with the lawlessness. So this has been the ebb and flow of the evening, back and forth. Right now, as we get closer to the midnight hour, it is starting to become more quiet, a little quieter in downtown Los Angeles, but it has been a rough night in the City of Angels. Some people protesting peacefully and others choosing to destroy property and potentially to hurt people. And that's when the messaging goes completely off of the rails, and what people only remember is the violence. They don't remember the thoughtful words that we played for you a little while ago, because some people felt very strongly about what they wanted to say.
Yeah.
Laura Diaz reporting live from downtown, sending it back to the studio.
Laura, maybe you can show us that the rubber bullet again, if you don't mind. And I just wanted to remind people, if you were watching us maybe 5 or 6 hours ago, we showed that some people were passing out face shields. And we were wondering why and where did these come from, and so I heard from Hassan Piker, who's a very well-known online guy, who said that these face shields are for basic safety to hand out. Basically, if you were hit in the face by that would really hurt. And so these protesters, their perspective is they hand out face shields and ear protection and respirators and goggles in case projectiles like that are shot at police to them to protect themselves. That's their perspective. Others would say if you're not instigating with them, you won't get hit. Of course, they say sometimes they're innocent victims of things as well. But that's some of what we've been seeing, and why you see some of the gear that they're wearing as well, because, Laura, as you well know, that would not feel so good if you get hit by it.
It's a very frenetic scene. So then we were crouched behind a wall so that we wouldn't get hit by the projectiles. And they would have hurt. They would have hurt.
check in. The city of Santa Ana that saw protests there tonight.
Yeah, and so hopefully there's order. It looks like there's a sense of order in the street there tonight, and hopefully they can get things under control in downtown LA tonight. You know, it's only a few people tonight. It's like a handful of people that we see at thing after thing that somehow are able to do this at thing after thing. We'll see if there's a different strategy overnight or a different strategy tomorrow night to hopefully stop some of that. The good news is in terms of mass destruction or problems or injuries or anything like that, we did not see that tonight. And I think law enforcement would say that in itself is a win and maybe part of why they're doing things strategically the way that they're doing things. But tomorrow will be a new day. And we will see what happens, what the governor says, what the president says, where all of this goes. But we do know that the National Guard will be here for another day, and we may see the emergence of the Marines tomorrow as well.
We are going to sign off here on Fox 11 and turn you over now to Dish Nation in progress, keeping a watch on these for you. And our morning shows will have full coverage tomorrow.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching.
So that you have them for like 2 or 3 seconds.
Okay.
No. Or so I've heard.
Yeah, to me, it just looks like he's not trying to look like he's slouched over, his arms all spread open. He just don't look like he's trying. He's doing a good job at looking like he's not trying.
Well, he shouldn't have worn that red Speedo there.
The true test here is Gary finding it as a trap.
Yes.
Okay, up next is Rob Lowe and his son John Owen. They shared this picture with the caption, Lowe family traditions, self-indulgent, shirtless gym photos. And then Rob's other son, Matt, hopped in the comments and he wrote, why does it look like you photoshopped your head on Johnny Lowe? What? Are they thirst trapping here?
No, man, they just father and son bonded, man. Go to the gym.
I think do get some better sneakers, though.
Yeah, those are the do chores kicks.
Right. Unless you're working out with dad kicks.
Well, keeping the thirst train moving, we've got expected mom Rihanna, honey. Now, she dropped these new pics for a Savage by Fenty, and even said, honey, she was playing hide the baby bump for the whole photo shoot. So is she thirst trapping? Yes. Absolutely.
Well, come on, she's the queen of marketing, and sometimes that involves being the queen of trapping.
Yeah, like all these stereotypical trap poses are on display. The squat down on it, the let me see,
look back at it.
Yeah, the how babies are made pose.
I'll be over here in the corner getting wet.
Is there a bug on the wall up there?
Is there a bug on the wall?
Are you looking at me? Coming up is the open sesame pose, I believe. She was pulling them apart. I saw it.
She's definitely not pulling them apart.
No, that's the thing, Brett. That's the thing girls do to get the little line. There's the little line down there at the bottom.
That's what the queen.
And they put their feet, and so you get the little extra crease.
That's the open for business pose.
Yeah.
Okay.
And last but not least, y'all, it's Taj Mowry, the younger brother of Tia and Tamara, showed off his muscles in his black and white pic. Some people in the comments were surprised, saying he would forever be the little brother. So is this a thirst trap?
This is like a civil rights era thirst trap.
He looked like somebody pumped him up with some helium or something.
That dude is on his way to be the Incredible Hulk.
He looks blown up. It's not a trap until he turns around.
Yeah, I don't think he's trapped.
Hiring the right attorney can mean the difference between winning $10,000 or $10 million. Call the firm that wins big. Call Sweet James.
All 6 people on board a plane that went down off California's coast are presumed dead. That Cessna aircraft crashed yesterday about 3 miles west of San Diego. crews searched the area yesterday and into this morning for any signs of survivors. Nothing has been found so far. This plane was headed to Phoenix from San Diego. The people on board have not been identified, and the cause of the crash is under investigation tonight. The man suspected of killing 2 people on the Las Vegas Strip as cameras rolled has turned himself in to police. Investigators say 41-year-old Manuel